is 7 o'clock, so we're going to call the meeting to order. At this time, I'd ask if there are any additions to the agenda.
I have one.
Okay.
Support letter.
Okay, support letter for
Doctor recruitment.
Okay. All right, and any other additions? Okay, I would ask for an approval of the agenda as amended.
Moved.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded. Okay, the agenda is approved with the one addition. Okay, Huey, are you able to hear us now, or were you successfully able to join on your tablet?
No, I'm still on my phone. It's asked me for an email address, and it's not like before. Whatever it is different.
Okay, no problem. We'll continue then, if you're good with it on your phone. So our next agenda item is the appointment of deputy mayor. And before we move forward, I would just, on behalf of council, like to thank our outgoing deputy mayor, Huey McDougall, for a job well done. So thank you so much, Huey, for serving the past year as deputy mayor. And we do have a new appointment, Mark McIver, as our incoming deputy mayor. And I would ask for council to consider a motion with regard to that reappointment.
I would move that, Your Worship, that we have Councillor McIver, deputy mayor, for the next year.
Perfect, thank you. Seconder? He's thinking about it, Mark.
Okay, I'll second it.
Councillor Coyne has seconded the motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, contrary minded. Okay, the motion is approved. And I would like to also take a quick moment to give our new deputy mayor his certificate of recognition for 20 years of service. These were distributed to long-serving council members of council at the most recent fall Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Conference. So I was very happy to accept this on behalf of Deputy Mayor McIver, and I would like to present this with you tonight, for you tonight. "20 years is a good hot minute to be serving on council." Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Councillor McDougall as well, who received an award at the conference. So congratulations to you both for your long years of service. All right, so this evening we do not have any gallery presentations, so we will move on to acknowledgements. I do have a few that I will acknowledge this evening, and then I will ask council if they have any of their own. The first one is from November 25th to December 10th is 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And then, of course, November is also the month for Remembrance Day on November 11th, as well as Veterans Week from November 5th to 11th. And of course, November 8th is Indigenous Veterans Day. Another important date I would like to acknowledge is November 20th, which is National Child Day and also Transgender Day. And then we have National History Week in Canada, November 20th to 26th. And I'd also like to acknowledge Colleen Morgan's grade 11 history class for the amazing work that they did for the Canadian Veterans Banner, honoring all of the veterans from the Strait area. And maybe I'll hand things over to Terry just to tell us a little bit more about the banners that were created.
Sure. So Colleen's class had chosen 7 veterans to research and honor. So they completed research on 7 of our veterans, and then created banners that that honor those 7 veterans in the spirit of honoring all veterans. So the hope is that that program will continue with sponsorship through the Legion and really good feedback on it, both from Sarek and from the people who visited the Civic Center. We were able to display the banners in the Civic Center. Those banners will be, they'll go on light poles. The light poles that go down to Sarek, which will be more visible to students as they're coming and going on their school buses and walking to work for next year. So we hope that the program will advance and we'll be able to help with that great initiative from Sarek.
It is a wonderful initiative, and if council is open to the idea, maybe we can send them a little letter of thanks on behalf of the council.
Certainly, absolutely.
Okay, if anybody would like to make that motion.
I would move.
Okay, moved by the deputy mayor. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, the motion is approved. We will write up a letter of congratulations and send that off to Morgan's class on behalf of council. At this time, are there any other acknowledgements that anyone would like to make? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to approval of council minutes. We have had our public meeting minutes distributed for October 3rd, 2023. At this time, I would ask if there are any errors or omissions with regard to those meeting minutes. Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to the special public meeting from October 17th, 2023. I would ask at this time if there are any errors or omissions from those sets of minutes. Okay, hearing none, we will move on to business arising from the minutes. Any that council wishes to discuss at this time?
Your worship?
Yes.
Through you.
Sure.
Just want to bring up the purchase of the room trail mower.
Okay, sure.
It's been attached to the machine and it's quite noticeable around town. The residents have been noticing, but it does make it look a lot neater.
Fantastic. No, I appreciate that. Any other comments or business arising? Okay, we'll move on to council reports, and we will start with the report from Committee of the Whole. Review, Terry.
Yes, your worship.
Huey, you got both going here, getting some feedback.
Just have to mute.
There we go.
Perfect. Okay, Terry.
There are a number of motions coming from Committee of Whole, and we'll choose those. So for consideration, motion with respect to Challenger Baseball, and that's the town of Port Hawkesbury provide in-kind support to the Challenger Baseball Association.
Okay, what is the wishes of council?
I'll speak on this. I have no problem with the in-kind contribution. However, I think that we should make a monetary donation, whether it be a small donation of, upwards of $200. This program is bringing children and young adults out to a ball field who generally would not go. Right now, they're running on a very tight budget. I'm part of this, and I can tell you that there's more stuff we would like to be able to do, and we just can't. And I think in the future, the town can also benefit by having this program thrive in the town.
Sure. And just on the matter of just figuring out ways to I guess, bring monetary or revenues to the group. I know, Aaron, you were looking into some potential grant opportunities that we could assist with.
So I think that's what the recommendation was, that Corinne maybe works with the organization to look at some equity, Sport Nova Scotia funding.
Okay.
So we would work with them
to
with
look
that
at those
regard.
avenues, because there's some really good programs there for equity in sport, and they'd be a very well-deserving candidate of that. But yeah, whatever the wishes of council are, that can be in addition
Sure.
to.
So I guess in lieu of that assistance, if that avenue doesn't work the way we hope it will,
Then we can
certainly we
revisit.
can come back
Sure.
to council if we want to consider a monetary one.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, perfect.
I'll move this motion.
Sure. Do we have a seconder?
Second it.
Would you like to give it to our recovering deputy mayor?
That's good.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion that has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary motion. Okay, the motion is approved. Sorry, Huey, I will wait an extra second. So I know going from between mute and unmute takes a minute. All right.
The next motion for consideration with respect to Port Hawkesbury Literacy Council, unless the town of Port Hawkesbury make an in-kind donation of the rental cost of the Bearhead Room for the Port Hawkesbury Literacy Council's annual fundraiser.
Thank you. What is the wishes of council?
I'll move the motion.
Okay, and it's been moved by Councillor Coyne. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Okay, seconded by Deputy Mayor McIver. Any discussion, or if you're prepared, you can call the question.
Question.
Question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. Okay,
Next motion is with respect to the Port Hastings Historical Society, that the town of Port Hawkesbury send a letter of thanks to the Strait Area Historical Society as requested by the Waterfront Advisory Committee.
okay, what is the wishes of council?
I would move the motion.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Second it.
Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Motion is approved.
And those are the motions coming from Committee of Full.
Okay, thank you so much, Terry. So now we would look for any errors or omissions in the Committee of the Whole minutes of October 17th, 2023. If there are no errors or omissions, I would ask for a motion to approve those minutes.
I would move to approve the minutes.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye or
Aye.
raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the minutes of Committee of the Whole, October 17 are approved. I would ask at this time if there is any business arising from the Committee of the Whole minutes. Okay. The next agenda item is motions from in camera. We did not have a in-camera session prior to this meeting, so we'll move on to council reports on assigned committees. I did distribute my Committee of the Whole report at the time that the package was circulated, and of course, as always, I'm happy to answer any questions at any time with regard to any of those items in my report. So maybe we'll start with Councillor McDougall. Did you want to start our committee reports off?
I can start, yeah. Your worship, thank you. Last night we had a Waterfront Development Committee meeting. We had a Port Hawkesbury Waterfront Advisory Committee, and then we had a Port Hawkesbury Development Committee meeting. We had an Audit Committee meeting this month, and I also attended the NSFM meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll go over to Councillor Coyne.
Thank you. Just last week, we had a planning advisory committee meeting. Week before, we had a Parks and Recreation Committee meeting. I also attended the Cape Breton Tourism Summit in Bedeque and attended the NSFM.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor McIver.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think both Councillor McDougall and Councillor Coyne summed it up.
Easiest going last sometimes.
It's easy going last, yeah.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. So we'll move on to the CAO report. So back over to you, Terry.
Yes, Your Worship, so all of the senior leaders had drafted and prepared reports, and they were sent out in your package. I won't go through them in detail, but just a couple of highlights. Just a reminder, December 3rd, our annual Christmas parade. There's tons of stuff going on in recreation. This is a very busy time through the Christmas season for recreation. So Michelle and Kareem are busy during that time providing those services for our residents and for the people of the Strait region. Just another note too, we had a very serious water main break on McDonald Street on last week, and which resulted in a significant amount of damage on the street itself. There was a large street rebuild plus the rehabilitation of the water main, which moves water from our water treatment plant to our main reservoir in Tamarack. So that work, thanks. I just want to reach out and thank Jason McMillan and the Public Works staff for the incredible work that they accomplished in a very short period of time with very minimal disruption to the residents of the town of Port Hawkesbury, working through the night and then again through the next day to get the street completely rehabilitated and back up and going. So thanks to the Public Works staff. I would say that if there's any questions, I'd certainly be happy to answer anything now, or you can reach out to me another time, or reach out to one of the managers or the director.
Okay, Councillor Coyne.
Through Your Worship, no questions, just a comment on the water break that Terry just spoke about. Councillor McIver and I were down there the evening of the water break. And it really impressed me to see how quickly our Public Works team got up from their tables, because it was just after supper time. They spent the entire night down there in the cold. It was a cold night. Went to visit them in the morning, they were still in great cheer. But also I think that we need to recognize Norvon, because Norvon got a call at the same time and was able to send employees and equipment down there to assist us in this water break. So I believe that they do deserve some recognition as well.
Thanks. Deputy Mayor, do you have any comments or questions?
Now, as Councillor Coyne stated, that I know I had a phone call at home that they'd lost water on Ryan's Road, and I called Bud, and he was in the process of calling up the staff. So they acted very quickly. It was well executed.
Fantastic. Councillor McDougall, any comments or questions?
Yes, Your Worship, I'd also like to acknowledge the great work that the Works Department did that evening. I know we were at a meeting, Terry and I and Jason, and I got a call, and Jason was right on top of it as soon as I got the call, and that was, I think, before we left the meeting. So thanks for the quick response.
Perfect.
Just one more comment, Your Worship.
Sure. Go ahead, Councillor Coyne.
I believe that we should send some recognition also to the water treatment crew. They played a crucial role in assisting Public Works, and shout out to them as well.
No, that sounds good. So thanks, Terry, for the report. So correspondence, I don't think we just had the one letter, right? Okay. Well, back. I think that was the Minister Moore letter. Yeah, so under correspondence, so it was just through the Department of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and great news that we have $1,000 coming our way for the 911 Cost Recovery Fund. So that is for information for council. So I think that's the only correspondence I believe we had in our package. Okay. The next item under proclamations, we do have one, and it is a proclamation for sorry, I meant to put a sticky note to save my spot. All right, so it is a proclamation that came forward from the Canadian Centre for Women's Empowerment, and it's with regard to economic abuse. So the motion for consideration is that the town of Port Hawkesbury proclaims November 26th as Economic Abuse Awareness Day in the town of Port Hawkesbury. And economic abuse is a very common form of intimate partner violence, as about 95% of domestic abuse survivors have also experienced or are experiencing this type of violence and abuse. So I would ask what the wishes of council are with regard to this proclamation.
I would move, your worship.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, we will approve that proclamation. Thank you. Okay, other business. We do have a significant number of items under other business. We'll start first with council expenses. So over to you, Terry.
Yes, your worship, there's a report included in your package a table that gives the expenses for the month of October for councillors, mayor, councillors, and CAO. The total amount for the month of October was a fairly busy month, was $2,700.58.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to December and January meeting dates. So I did mention just before we started, we do have some scheduling conflicts in December. So typically we have our council meeting on the 5th, on the first Tuesday of each month, which lands on the 5th of December. I'll be in Ottawa at that time. So for, I guess, some options for council to consider, we could look at doing our public meeting on the 12th, which is the next Tuesday, followed by the committee of the whole on the 19th. Or if council wishes, we could do a combined public meeting and committee of the whole on the 12th or the 19th. So I guess I would open that up for discussion with regard to what council would prefer for our meetings in December. Okay, Councillor Clark?
I would suggest that we look at December 19th for both meetings,
Okay,
just because if we go on the 12th, it'll be quite some time before we come back.
sure. Nope, that sounds great. Councillor McDougall, does that sound all right for you?
I don't know at the moment. I'm just trying to look at my schedule, so
Sure, so our regular committee of the
tentatively,
whole, yeah, go ahead, sorry.
we can make it for that tentatively, yeah.
Okay, sounds good. So tentatively, we'll look at the 19th for a joint committee of the whole and public meeting. And looking ahead to January, our first open day is the 2nd, which happens to be the first Tuesday. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge getting together a public meeting for that date. So options, because there are 5 Tuesdays that month, we could look at the following Tuesday, similar to what we discussed for December. So we could look at the 9th for a public meeting and the 16th for committee of the whole, or we could combine for the 16th, or we could push the committee of the whole to the 23rd and do the 9th and the 23rd. So there are a few options that council can consider.
9th and 23rd, if that's,
Sure. Okay, the 9th and the 23rd, that way it gives us 2-week difference between our combined on the 19th of December. So if we do the 9th for our public meeting and the 23rd for our committee of the whole, that should put us back on track for regular scheduled meetings for February and onward. Okay, perfect. Thank you. So we'll get Melissa. Oh, go ahead, Huey.
Yeah, December 19th is good for me, Your Worship, for both meetings.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll get Melissa to make those adjustments in our calendar appointments, and then we will also make sure that we let folks know who may want to observe those meetings as well. All right, anything else, Terry?
No, that's great. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on now to advisory citizen appointments. Oh, sorry, December holiday schedule first, and then the appointment.
Sure, so included in the package is the schedule over Christmas. So basically, we're looking at closing on December 22nd, and then reopening the day after New Year's, which is Tuesday, January 2nd. So we'll be closed for that week.
So I guess it's as business as per usual with regard to the vote.
I'll move the motion.
Okay. So that the town of Hawkesbury approve the 2023 holiday schedule as presented at the joint public meeting of council committee of the whole held on November 21st, 2023. Do we have a seconder?
seconded.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, the motion is approved. Excuse me. Now on to advisory citizen appointments. Terry?
Your Worship, so we have a request from Doreen Livingston to join the Port Hawkesbury Development Advisory Committee. So I would ask that the following motion be considered, that the town of Port Hawkesbury appoints Doreen Livingston to the Port Hawkesbury Development Advisory Committee.
Thank you. What is the wishes of council?
I'd make that motion, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you, Councillor McDougall. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye, raising your hands.
Aye.
Contrary minded. Okay, that motion is approved.
The next motion, Your Worship, is with respect to the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and the town of Port Hawkesbury appoints Tiffany Coffin to the Port Hawkesbury Accessibility Advisory Committee.
Thank you, Gary. And just to provide some context, Tiffany will be replacing Diana Poirier, and she'll be representing the Rock Society on the Accessibility Board.
I will move the motion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Okay. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded. Okay, that motion is approved. Okay. Our next item is the Town of Port Hawkesbury Housing Needs Assessment Report. Terry?
Yes, Your Worship, this is a significant document that was created by the province of Nova Scotia, and it was done for all municipalities across the province. So it's the document is the Town of Port Hawkesbury Municipal Housing Needs Report. It's been distributed to council, and we will be using this document for further to take advantage of further programs that may become available to us, and for general study and assessment for the housing needs of Port Hawkesbury. So we will move this forward for our next meeting as well for consideration, and it has been brought forward to our development advisory committee as well, that have been looking at this and have reviewed it.
Fantastic. Okay. Any questions at this time? Okay. We'll move on then to the memorandum of understanding coming forward from Destination Cape Breton. Terry?
Yes, Your Worship. So the Destination Cape Breton has asked that we review and approve a new memorandum of understanding. So we've had a memorandum of excuse me, of understanding with Destination Cape Breton since 2011-12. Now that the new marketing levy bylaw is in place, that has dictated that there be some changes to that memorandum. There are some other changes as well. That's primarily administrative and keeping up with with changes in legislation as well, and changes to the committee, including there's some councils that have a community representative on, so it's councillor or representative. There's the 3-month term has been changed to 4 months to allow for potential delay by auditors for the audit, and as well some administrative changes. So we asked that, and again, this was distributed in your packages. So we ask for approval from council to approve this document. So that the motion for consideration is that the town of Port Hawkesbury enter a memorandum of understanding with Destination Cape Breton and the participating municipalities.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. What is the wishes of council?
I'll move the motion.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Seconded.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. Okay. The next item is Town of Port Hawkesbury travel policy, and back over to you, Terry.
Your Worship, so we brought a notice of the for the adoption of the revised travel policy on September 19th. It was our intention to bring that forward on October 3rd, but we missed out on that occasion. We asked that the town of Port Hawkesbury adopt the travel policy as presented at the September 19th bylaw and policy meeting, effective August 3rd, 2024.
Thank you. What is the wishes of council?
That should be 23, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That should be October, shouldn't it?
Yes.
October 3rd, 2023.
I thought I heard August 3rd, 2024.
Did I do
Yeah, we just corrected that.
We got two corrections to make. One is the October, and the other one is 2023.
Got the month and the year wrong. But the 3 is correct.
Listen, one of the three ain't bad.
With the corrections, I'll move the motion.
Okay. All right, so the motion should read that the town of Port Hawkesbury adopt the travel policy as presented at the September 19th bylaw and policy meeting effective October 3rd, 2023. Do we have a seconder?
Somebody should write a song about that. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
I feel like Meatloaf has already has that covered.
Sounds like a country and western tune to me.
All right, are you also seconding the motion? Councilor
I am.
Nugent? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, the motion is approved.
Your Worship, the next item on the agenda is with respect to the municipal election. I'm just bringing this forward for your attention. So
Sure.
the bylaw that we have in place for electronic voting was only put in place for the last election. So there's a decision to be made by council whether we want to move forward with the same format or we want to move forward with a fully electronic election. And it'll be our intention to bring forward some information with respect to options on that for council's consideration, so we can consider how we administrate the next election.
Sure, so just bringing it forward to put it on our radar?
Yes.
Okay. Right, that sounds good. So that's just a radar item, soon to come. The next item is water testing results. So Councillor McDougall did bring that forward at our last meeting, but we wanted to make sure we moved that. We tabled it until this meeting, so Councillor McDougall could be present for this discussion. Over to you, Terry.
Sure. So we have had some discussion on this. There's been the water in the yacht club area or beside the wharf further north has been tested twice now. Once in the summer months and once in the fall. And so tests in the fall were very good. There were some concerns about the tests in the summer. The testing of water for recreational purpose, whether it's boating or swimming or whatever, is fairly regulated. So there are guidelines for Canadian recreational water quality. It's a 155-page document. So there's a considerable process involved in doing this properly. The need is there. The need has been expressed a number of times at the Waterfront Advisory Committee, and certainly by members of that. Councillor McDougall is one, and others. So it's the intention that we put measures in place that we start off in late spring, and either if we're not trained, have a testing company do the required testing to determine what's safe to do in our shores in that area, and move that forward. So one of the big things is that it's not a one test type of thing. There has to be a baseline established. Okay. Then you have a series of 3 tests per week, and that has to be averaged. And it's called a running average, and you continuously sort of add to that and then evaluate it based on the chemical parameters and the bacteria parameters with respect to bacteria in the water. So that's the intention at this point in time, so that we'll have accurate information to determine the safety of the water and what can be safely done for recreational purposes in the water in the sort of the yacht club and wharf area for our waterfront.
Just out of curiosity, do other municipalities do that if they have like active beaches, etc.? Like,
yeah, so typically this is done through the Nova Scotia Lifeguards Association.
okay.
So most of those, in my mind, so most of those, the lifeguard beaches have a process in place.
Okay.
They have a training program, they have procedures, they have people that administrate that provincially. As far as I believe HRM has a program in place. I'm not aware of others that do. There may very well be smaller municipalities that do that, but we're not aware of that, and we haven't been able to find any that have. And we're looking for a testing company that would take this on for us as well. This is actually unusual as well. Okay. It's typically done with in-house training, and however, we will find out by the spring. We will put a process in place that follows the guidelines with the prepared by people with the expertise to do that, because we just don't have it.
That makes sense. Over to you, Councillor McDougall, if you have any questions or comments.
No questions or comments. I guess I got a comment. The only comment I had is that I asked for the test to be done, and the only reason I put it on the agenda is because it was in between they were doing it, but in the meantime they did it. I'm not even know why it was on the agenda tonight. Thank you for your report, Terry. That was interesting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So development zone bylaw, Terry?
It's over to Director of Finance.
Oh, Karen.
Thank you, Your Worship.
So this is something that council has requested that we look into, a commercial development district support program bylaw. So there is a draft bylaw in your package. Council had brought forward kind of the C5 Reeve Street area as being the potential for having this program. You can go to the next slide there. So this is basically allowing, so that's the area, it's in the red on your screen. So the Reeve Street, the rezoning that we did through the Reeve Street project. And I'll go next slide. So the authority that's provided to municipalities to do this, it was, I believe it was in 2017 where this was passed. It comes through Section 71 of the Municipal Government Act to give municipalities the authority to designate an area within your municipality where you can have phased-in taxes. The rationale for this bill and legislation and change to the Municipal Government Act was to support economic growth within communities, supporting development of brownfield sites, and also to support commercial property owners in areas of upward assessment pressure. So if there was, significant building and inflation in a specific area, you could provide support to existing business. That's not, we haven't had significant growth in our assessment, so we're not seeing that trend. And the reason council brought this forward was to, for the rationale, which I think was to support economic growth within the town. But that's just some background on the potential bylaw. Some things I think, so this was presented at because there's obviously part of the municipal planning strategy has to be amended. So this was discussed at the Planning Advisory Committee meeting as of last week, I believe, where they looked at the area. And this same presentation was provided there for some feedback. And I think it's important to get feedback of council and of our advisory committee and our community, as we're going through this process. So this isn't, there hasn't been first reading or second reading of this bylaw, so there will be a public process around any bylaw. But just looking for some feedback before kind of final draft this bylaw comes to council for first reading. So I think, through the municipal planning strategy, the area was defined and it was agreed to by the Planning Advisory Committee. As part of and the Planning Advisory Committee was kind of supportive of the bylaw in draft form as you have it in your package. But just if council has any comment on this, I'd gladly accept that, and we can take that into advice as we're drafting the bylaw for council consideration and first reading. But I guess there was a question around whether this incentive should be for new developments or for any investments that happen. And my understanding from council was this was to spur on new building, not for building that is being planned right now. So something that is part of this bylaw is that, discussion and interest in the program should be provided after the bylaw and before a building permit is provided. And also looking for feedback on the investment threshold. So, I looked at this bylaw. I think it's in place in maybe 6 to 8 municipalities across Nova Scotia. And there's some don't have it's more of a subjective improvement to the building at the discretion of the municipality, but just talked about whether or not there should be a threshold for getting into the program. And the number we put in this bylaw was, the value of the improvement would be $250,000 or more. This is going to be something that has to be administrated manually, basically. So I think, we should be looking at things that are somewhat sizable. And I mean, $250,000 investment, it doesn't give you huge improvements with construction values the way they are right now. So that was something that was discussed with the Planning Advisory Committee, and they felt that seemed reasonable. You could look at some sort of percentage of assessment growth, but that is something you have to wait to find out what the assessment growth is. So if the value of the improvement of the building permit, which is based on kind of construction data that planning has to determine if it's accurate or not, is something that they felt was reasonable. And if there's any feedback or questions on this as I'm going through, let me know. But this bylaw allows for up to 50% of the assessment growth to be rebated up to a maximum of 10 years. You don't have to go to the maximum. You can choose a different threshold. But in the bylaw that I've seen kind of in the province and the one that you have in your package, it is using the 10 years and the 50% overall average taxes for the improvement. But again, something can be considered outside of that if that was council's wishes. So just some questions that came up at the Planning Advisory Committee or things that kind of were pointed out in addition to this. The bylaw is in effect until council rescinds the bylaw, but if buildings or if entities are granted through an agreement with the municipality access to this program, they get the full 10 years regardless if the bylaw is rescinded or not. So basically you're locked in for the 10 year, which makes sense. And yeah, that's all I can remember. There was another thing that was in my head, but I lost it right now. So I'm just happy to take any feedback on that, or if you're comfortable with kind of those parameters, and that's great. Just looking to kind of get to know that or take any feedback so we can implement that into first final draft, I guess.
So this is development for any properties within that red area, whether it's municipally owned properties or privately owned properties.
Yeah, so and it could be expansion, it doesn't have to be new build, that's what's in the bylaw. I guess if you wanted to restrict something to new build, then you can, but right now it's expansion or new build.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Maybe we'll start with Councillor Aucoin, who is also the chair of Planning Advisory.
Through you, your worship. One thing that was brought to our attention at the last advisory meeting was one of the members felt very strongly that we should include the industrial park. We had a discussion on it, but I did want to bring it forward. The discussion that was had at the Planning Advisory Committee was that we felt as a majority to go with what you see in front of you now in the red highlighted to start. That doesn't mean that we can't add to it later. And I think that those concerns were asked to be voiced here tonight, so I'll bring that forward. And it's just something for council to consider as well.
So once we establish a development zone, we do have the ability to either reduce that geography or expand that geography. Okay, that's good information.
And I do have another comment. I asked council to support the mayor to send a letter sooner than later to Minister Laura and to our MLA, Alan McMaster. Right now, the only buildings that can get the tax break are commercially owned or mixed use. The mixed use part of the building, they would only get the tax break on the commercial part of that building. Having some discussions at NSFM, and we talked about this here before, but I'm just asking for council to agree to have our mayor send a letter asking the province to change the legislation to allow residential developments over 6 units to be able to access the same tax breaks in this development zone as a commercial building. The reason for that is, as we've heard over the last number of years, people are nervous to come in and develop right now with the cost of construction and our tax rate. So this is a way that I think we could try to spur on some extra high density housing developments. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess that I would ask for any feedback with regard to Councillor O'Coin's suggestion to communicate with MLA Alan McMaster as well as Minister John Moore. What's your thoughts?
Question through you, Your Worship. This is on new builds.
On new builds. Well, we don't have any buildings there that are over 6 units. I don't believe that would fall into the upgrade
In that zone.
in that zone.
That it would I guess the idea behind it is to ways, incentivize and to hopefully spur on some more housing developments within that zone.
I don't think we have any apartment buildings in there, do we?
Yeah.
Oh, I believe we do.
We do, yeah, there
So-
would be on the other
Yeah,
side.
okay.
Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so any, what you're asking for is any residential development within that zone. Either it would, so the conditions of the bylaw would be met, as Aaron has explained. The change would be that it would include residential.
Correct.
Residential units in that zone. So
I
that would mean a change to legislation from the province, and this is the request that will go forward as an update from the letter that we had previously sent.
Correct.
Okay.
It would just be maybe like just following up with both ministers, and also, I guess, just making note that it wouldn't be just any residential project, it would be high-density housing, not just a house, it would be.
Right, so
Yeah.
through you, Your Worship, to answer Councillor McIver's question, it would include any units right now over 6, any buildings with over 6 units if they did a major renovation over the 250,000, if it follows the bylaw the way it reads.
And the entire project of mixed use.
Right.
If it included residential.
You mean if the legislation is changed?
That's right,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, it would, yeah,
And the
obviously,
letter is just.
you wouldn't have that flexibility without the province considering amending that legislation to
Yes.
allow for housing.
My question through you, Your Worship, on that, do we have any over 6 units outside that zone?
The number.
That, do you think that would create a problem with those owners if they were going to do renovations and not be able to access that?
Your Worship, I mean, just to add, and I think that's going to be a question that maybe many people have. A development zone is just that. It's meant to be one area of your municipality. So like the idea, and I think the province would have an issue with that, is calling our whole town a development zone. Just really, that's not the purpose. So when we talk about inclusion of the business park, Roxbury Business Park is part of that, then, between Reed Street and the business park, that's most of our commercial development. The same thing if we talk about high density housing, that's primarily in an area that's not there. What we're trying to do is spur on high density housing within that. If that's the intent of council, you'd be trying to spur on new growth within that area, and any housing, because of the zoning, because of C5, any housing that's built in C5 zone has to be over 6. So that's the purpose of it's a zone within the town. It's not the whole town. And yes, I'm certain that there could be concerns raised from owners, both on the commercial side and on the residential side, if residential is eventually considered, because of that purpose. It is a zone which looks at one area of town.
And existing developers that do have residential or high-density housing units in the town would have the same opportunity to develop as any new developers considering developing in the town. So I guess it's, the geography is the development zone. And, like Terry said, it's to spur on, and to spur on economic development, and also to see if there's an opportunity to start bridging the gap for our housing needs here in the town. I think it's an innovative idea. But it's important to have council's feedback with regard to what your thoughts are on it.
Through your worship to Aaron, if the province were to allow residential over 6 units, could we then in the bylaw say it has to be a new build?
You could, I guess, right now it's for expansion and, new construction. You can have it just for new construction on vacant land if that's what you choose within that development area, or you can change the development area if you don't want it to be the whole strip of Ray Street. You probably could. I'd have to look into I'd have to look at what the legislation looks like, right? Because that legislation isn't there right now.
Right.
So I don't know. I'd have to see how it's written. But just to note, even a commercial entity that has a, that puts up an apartment building, they are taxed at the residential tax rate. It's not the commercial tax rate. So, it's a significantly lower rate than the commercial tax rate on that currently. But I'd have to look at the legislation itself to determine if that's something that's allowable or not.
Any questions to our virtual counselor?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I have a couple of questions and comments, I guess. So the meeting you had that Councillor Coyne chaired was the Broxbury, was that the planning or
advisory.
planning advisory? Okay. I'm just getting all my committees mixed up here. I was at the Broxbury Development Committee meeting last week, and Councillor Coyne mentioned a couple of reasons was that there was nobody coming in. Did you say there was a tax rate? And what was the other one? The material cost?
Yes.
Well, we had quite a substantial, quite a developer at our meeting, and neither one of those reasons he gave was a cost when he wasn't coming to Roxbury. But that's beside the point. I'll get back to the, as far as I'm concerned about the province, I'm not comfortable at this moment making a motion to send a letter to any minister without, first of all, going over this a little more myself. And are we not going against, as long as we're not going against the Municipal Government Act in any way or any other provincial statutes? I know we didn't want to make a motion or send a letter in support of Halifax when they had issues with the that was called personal. So I don't want this to be deemed as in other municipalities across the province as it only affects Port Hawkesbury or the municipality of Port Hawkesbury. So we don't want to, and it shouldn't affect the rest of the province. So I'd like to get more study into it first before I make any decision. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McDougall. Deputy Mayor McIver.
Yes, Your Worship, through you. I think Aaron had answered my question. There is wiggle room in the bylaw where we can move stuff around even if this was approved through the province.
I'd have to look at the legislation that was written around,
This would be new, right?
It would be, yes. We would have to probably take a look at our bylaw again after that legislation change. Obviously, provincial legislation would trump our bylaw and would have to follow the provincial legislation, but there'd be nothing within our bylaw that would be contrary with this legislative change to the MGA. We just may have to amend it to adapt it for the allowing of residential properties.
So by sending a letter to the minister to request the legislation to change, we would have input into that too. I would think that he'd be asking questions of us, what we were looking for.
I would think so, yes.
For sure.
If this is something that they would have to go through legislation to change it and everything, they would put a lot into it. And they would probably look for input from municipalities.
They would, if it amends their overall legislation, then any municipality that is looking to create a commercial development zone would also have that nimbleness and flexibility to incorporate high-density housing within their commercial.
So we would be the lead in the request of the government to change the legislation or to ask.
Yeah, I think the intent was to put it on their radar, that was an idea that we would like to incorporate into our development zone proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, your worship. We've discussed this a lot here at council. I believe there's already been one letter sent.
Yes.
This is a follow-up letter, just to kind of gently remind the powers to be that now we are looking at creating this development zone and explain our reason for why we think the residential portion of it would benefit all municipalities, not just Port Hawkesbury. And Councillor McDougall, this was some conversations that NSFM led to this ask for tonight.
Okay. One quick question that I have. So like moving forward, this commercial development zone would not negate that, I guess, the ask of the province to consider adding housing via legislation. So nothing should delay us moving forward with first reading if council is I guess, agreeable to in its current form. But I guess if we were to be in a position, should the province be willing to change legislation to include high-density housing in commercial development zones, then we could always amend that at a later date. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, the legislation's there.
Yeah, so obviously, like Aaron had said earlier, the provincial legislation does trump municipal legislation and bylaws. So we have to work with what we can work with currently. But I think to Councillor Aucoin's, I guess, point is just to express interest, again, circling back to Minister Lohr, and also letting our MLA, Minister Alan McMaster, know, I guess, what the town would like to have considered at a future date, if and when possible. Okay. So I do want to circle back to you though, Councillor McDougall, like we did already send a letter on the topic, but I guess if you're not feeling comfortable with us just circling back to Minister Lohr, then certainly we do want to hear your concerns on it.
Well, I guess, thank you, Your Worship. I guess my concerns are, we sent the letter, they got the letter, they're going to look at the letter. They're the elected officials for the province. They make the legislation. I mean, we gave our point. We don't have to keep after them and after them. It's like we're elected for the municipalities to make decisions for the municipality. They're elected to make the decisions for the province. Once the decision is made, then we make our bylaw according to the decision. That's all my point is.
Councillor Aucoin?
I feel it's probably in our best interest, but if council doesn't want to support it, then
Make a motion if you
then
like.
we won't do it. So I will put a motion on the floor to have a follow-up email from yourself to Minister Lohr and to Minister McMaster, just gently reminding them that this is something that we're interested in moving forward with and asking if it's something that they're willing to look at.
Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for consideration. Any other discussion?
Yes, through you, Your Worship. So we had no correspondence back from the
No.
first letter.
I will defer to Terry. I don't think we have.
So this letter or email is just a reminder to see where it lays.
Yeah, and we could, give a little, because the letter did have some details, but we could tie in, for example, the recent announcement for Everwind and, in excess of 3,000 jobs is another great reason to look at innovative ways to increase housing stock for the town of Roxbury. So I think there are some follow-up opportunities just to, I guess, lend more of an argument to why this should be considered potentially.
I agree. It's, would be nice to get a response,
Yeah,
even from the first letter.
yeah, and I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, it's just, here we are, we're town on the move, we really like to see our we have a priority for housing as a council. And, this is, definitely, I think the province is in a different place currently than it might have been when this legislation was passed in terms of commercial development zones. We know this current province sees also a priority for housing. So maybe, I guess a follow-up is up to council. I'm happy to do so if council so wishes.
Question.
Okay, the question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded?
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay and 3 ayes, so the motion is approved. Anything else on that item, Terry or Aaron? I guess
No, thank you.
Okay, so what is the wishes of council with regard to this development zone proposal? Do we need any more work on it, or are we okay with, I guess, creating a date for first reading? Terry?
Yeah, just we do need a little more time for
Okay.
to finalize the document, so it is in draft. So before, when we go to first reading, we're fairly certain of the
Sure.
wording. So what goes from first reading is the exact same document that goes to second reading. So we want to be sure of that. And before we go to second reading, we want to ensure that we have planning with us at that. So
Sure.
we have to pick the date with them. We
Okay,
are going to be getting into a discussion around the MCIP program and the requirement for a meeting on that. And that could be a special meeting where we consider first reading of the development zone bylaw and a resolution with respect to an MCIP project as well.
okay. No, that sounds great. So we will move on then to, nice segue, Terry. Move on to the municipal capital growth program.
Yes, Your Worship, as council is aware, there is an opportunity available through the provincial government. It's called the Municipal Capital Growth Program. We do have some projects that fit very nicely within that program. We've had some, Jason has attended I wasn't able to attend, actually I got to part of it, the information session on this program, and certainly there's opportunity there. What we'd like to do with council is to sit down and look at options around that, what projects you want to move forward. We need a fair amount of time to get the application together. I think it has to be in on December 13th. So we would like to meet as soon as we can, and we're asking for consideration for a meeting on Monday, which I think is the 27th at 3:30 or 3 o'clock. Possible?
What was the date again, Terry, sorry?
So Monday, the 27th, next Monday.
Okay.
So at that time, we'll consider the options, the project options. We'd ask council for a resolution because that's a requirement of the submission. And if it's a wish of council, we can consider the draft bylaw that was presented to you tonight for first reading, which will include the date for the community consultation.
Okay, thank you. So that would be 3 p.m. on Monday, November 27th.
The council is available, it's important the council is available, so we need your
I'm
input.
good in my schedule.
I'm good.
Councillor Flynn?
Yep.
Councillor McDougall?
Yeah, looks like I'm good.
Okay, perfect. So we will, I guess, lock that in under future meetings. So we'll add that. Anything else, Terry, that you need to cover in that agenda item?
That's it, Your Worship.
Okay, perfect. We do have one approved addition. I'll hand things over to Councillor O'Coin for the request for a support letter for the doctor support letter for Cape Breton South Dakota.
I'm excused from it.
Yes.
Through you, Your Worship. On my way to NSFM, I received a phone call from a doctor who's just about ready to go to work. He will be a family doctor, GP. He expressed great interest in coming to the Port Hawkesbury area. He says that some of his colleagues are here and they're praising Port Hawkesbury and it's a great place to practice, which was very nice to hear. I took as much information from him as I could and put him in touch with Gina McDonald, our navigator. Gina's been in conversation back and forth now for a week and a half, and Gina reached out this morning. She sent an email which I shared with council, and she's kind of given us the Coles Notes version of the type of support letter she needs. Right now, what we're seeing is that there's some areas in much greater need than Port Hawkesbury for this doctor. The fear that we're having after having multiple conversations with this doctor is that if he can't come to Port Hawkesbury, he's probably not going to stay in Nova Scotia. So Gina's been advocating, and she feels a support letter from the town of Port Hawkesbury would be a big help. Richmond County is also talking about and will be giving a support letter as well for Gina to send along. So I'm just asking council if they're okay with us doing a letter of support to try to bring another doctor into the town.
So would the letter of support would be addressed to
Gina.
To Jean?
Yeah.
Okay, and she would, I guess, work with the powers that be that in the provincial recruitment.
Right, so she's got a package she's getting together.
Okay.
To make a case for this doctor to come here.
Got it. Okay, so I guess Councillor McDougall, Councillor McIver just had to leave for a few moments, so I guess over to you with regard to your thoughts on it.
Well, I think it's wonderful if it's but Councillor Coyne said he's going to be a medical doctor. What's that mean? He's going to be.
He is
Already? He's already a
He's-
doctor, I'm assuming. He's a medical doctor now.
He is a doctor, not licensed to practice in Canada as of today. He writes his exam very shortly. And as soon as that exam is passed, they will tell him where he's going to work. So he wants to be able to have some reassurance that he can come to Port Hawkesbury, and this is why Gina is working so quickly.
Any follow-up questions?
Well, I guess our committee, who's on the committee? Your worship, yourself and Jason and Blaine, is it? No?
Myself and Councillor McCord.
Okay. And was that brought up at your committee meeting? No. Or was it?
Well, we haven't had a meeting at this point because the meeting happened at the same time as the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities Conference, so it was rescheduled. So we haven't had the conversation. I'm imagining that support letters will be coming in from different folks. That Gina's working diligently, so there's a bit of a time factor. So this would be not from Cape Breton South Recruiting from Health, but this would be directly from the council, the town of Hawkesbury Council. And happy to circulate that draft letter so that everybody's happy with the result, and before we send that off to Gina, if council so wish. So Jason has moved that request. We do need a seconder.
Second.
Okay. Did you have
On
a
the question? So this letter from the town is going to the committee, is it?
It's going to Gina McDonald, our navigator. So what is the wishes of council?
Question.
Okay, question has been called. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Contrary minded? Okay, the motion is approved. We will get a letter ready and
Thank you.
circulate it to council to make sure that everyone is happy with it, and pending everyone is happy with that draft, we will send that on to Gina McDonald. ASAP, seeing as there is a deadline. Thank you for bringing that forward, Councillor Coyne. Future meetings, we already had extensive conversation on future meetings so far this evening. So we don't have to belabor that agenda item any longer than we've already discussed. We'll move on to public question period. We do not have any physical members within the gallery, but if we do have any virtual gallery participants who do have questions, feel free to unmute and let us know who's speaking, and questions must be with regard to any of our agenda items that were covered here this evening. Okay, so at this time, hearing that there are no questions, I would ask for a motion of adjournment.
Moved.
Okay, moved by Deputy Mayor McIver, seconded by Councillor Coyne. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay,
That's media.
motion is approved. We are adjourned. So if any media